This is the Core Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rawls. Brendan Madigan was one of the first names I put on my list of people that I'd like to interview for this podcast. Brendan is the owner of Alpenglow Sports, a specialty outdoor retailer in Tahoe that is coming up on 50 years in business. But Brendan's superpower isn't retail, it's community building. Alpenglow is just one hub of the communities that he's building and supporting. Brendan is a values-driven entrepreneur who's constantly putting his community first. Whether it's his Tahoe community, the outdoor industry, or more recently the trail running community, Brendan is leading by example. He is a prime example of how a small business can thrive and grow by building a community of customers. Whether you're a retailer or a brand, there's a lot we can learn from this conversation with Brendan. But before we jump into the conversation, thanks to those who have subscribed and left a review recently. It's cool to see the momentum around this podcast grow. Please continue to support the show by sharing an episode with a friend and hitting the subscribe button. You can also send me an email with your suggestions of who you'd like to hear on the show by emailing me at coreoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. That's coreoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to learn more about Core and what we're doing to support and grow the outdoor industry here in BC, check out our website, coreoutdoors.org. That's K-O-R-E outdoors.org. Okay, let's get into it in my conversation with Brendan Madigan. So the first place I want to start, Brendan, is can you tell me the story of a challenging and memorable outdoor adventure, whether physically or mentally challenging, that sticks in your mind and you've taken, a lot away from it, looking back on it?
Sure. I think the biggest kind of learning lesson that comes to mind is an expedition I took right before I bought Alpenglow. So back in 2010, went to Denali with some friends, and we were going to ski to Mester in the Orient, and which, to be honest, probably needs to be renamed. I don't know if it has been, but we were going to ski lines and go big, and it was just a classic kind of exercise in adversity and team building. We had tough weather, and we were stuck in 14 camp for 10 days, and I'd been an athlete my entire life, playing sports growing up, so I had a lot of that integrated into myself already. But it was just a great learning experience in the mountains with close friends and adversity. And it was just highly instructional right before I bought Alpenglow. So I came home, with that, and I was very galvanized.
That's cool. Do you know Cam from Nemo Equipment? Have you ever met Cam?
I don't know him, but I know who he is.
Okay. I had a conversation with him recently for this podcast, and he had a very similar story on Denali before starting Nemo. So interesting how those events can catalyze new things for us.
Yeah, it cured me of expedition skiing because the snow was so terrible. It wasn't even snow; it was like blue ice. But we did get some good turns in and skied some good stuff. So
that's funny. Yeah, it's hard to leave a place like Tahoe to go ski potentially better snow. You got some quality snow there.
Yeah, we're very lucky. I mean, I remember the homie Kip, who's no longer with us, but he was a pro skier and did the travel thing, and he was always amazed. Like he would say, "Well, man, I travel all over the world to ski, and you guys are getting way more vert in there in Tahoe." And we're just lucky because it's like sport climbing. It's right there.
Sure. So we're going to talk about all different, I guess it's all the different hats you wear in your life. But the primary one, the one I've known you for or met you for first, was Alpenglow Sports, and a famous independent retailer in Tahoe. And you have employees that are working there with you at Alpenglow that you've been there for almost 20 years. Is that right? Over 20
I've
years?
been here since 2004. So just over 20. Yeah.
And there are a couple of people there who have worked there since before your time at Alpenglow. It's amazing.
Yep. One in particular, Jeff Dosty, who's, a close friend and our manager, hard goods buyer. And then our women's buyer, Tracy Brostek, came on board a week after me. So, and, we've worked together for 2 decades now and are very close friends. I mean, it transcends friendship. It's family, and it's been a great ride for sure with them.
It's amazing because I think that's the kind of the through line of success I see with some independent outdoor retailers, is that they have these key staff members that stick around. And that's not true for a lot of retailers. And so I'm curious, what's the secret behind keeping people stoked and in their jobs for decades at an outdoor retailer?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the right answer, but I'll say first and foremost, it gets increasingly more difficult to do that in the landscape that we exist in. I'd say with, Jeff and Tracy, and, we've had some other folks who worked here 7, 10 plus years. A lot of it's luck. We were following a similar passion at the same time in our lives, and got on board at Alpenglow, which has always been a shop that is, a great mix of playing hard before you work and then coming in and working hard. So whether it's in the skin tracker or on the bike or running before work, that's kind of the shared religion. So luckily we just came on board at the same time, and through that process fostered a friendship, as climbing partners, skiing partners. And we grew a culture together, that it existed before us. We were standing on the shoulders of some amazing people who came before us, and we got lucky to continue to grow it. So, giving people responsibility, like giving them room to grow, make mistakes, grow from mistakes, learn, evolve, and then honestly pay. I carry a really heavy payroll that people in the real business world look at and say, like, you can't make it paying people that much money. And it's not that much money in the grand scheme of things. Like, we're working a lifestyle job, or being honest about it, but it's a livable wage. And, hopefully I can continue to buck the real world trend of paying people too much, which is a funny thing to say.
Good for you. I mean, it also probably helps that you are placed in the world. That's a pretty magical spot to draw people into as well.
Yeah, we're super lucky geographically. We have world-class, pretty much anything sport-wise. You choose your sport, and it's pretty epic here in Tahoe, and let alone access to the Eastern Sierra and Yosemite and all the things. And then, we're close to big urban areas with a lot of passionate, mountain climb people. So yeah, it's kind of a perfect storm of good things. I'm just super grateful for, the people that came before me and kind of set the tone and built the foundation. And then, particularly grateful to Jeff and Tracy, who have been instrumental. And, they've seen me at my best. They've definitely seen me at my worst, and vice versa. And it's just been, I call it one of the greatest honors in my life to build something with them.
That's cool. Tracy was one of the first buyers I met at Outdoor Retailer a long time ago, probably, and both of our first couple of years in the game. And it's people like Tracy that I miss not seeing at Outdoor Retailer when we no longer go to it. And the people like Tracy and others in the community are just they bring so much passion to it, and they're just a real honest, down to earth people. And it's like, what a blessing and a privilege to be able to do business with people like that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the magic of the industry at large, right? You could go from mountain town to mountain town, or whatever, surf town to surf town. It's the same thing with a different conduit. And we're all roughly the same group of people with the same interests and passions. And I think that's always been the bedrock of the industry. I think it's changing a little bit, but I think it's pretty magical too.
So Alpenglow is well known for maintaining a high level of service and a high standard to your customers. Do you have a formalized training program for employees to bring them into that vibe that you've created? And or is it just by osmosis? And how do you maintain this high standard with your employees who in a mountain town kind of will revolve through from time to time?
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit of both, to be honest. We have a formal onboarding process that I do with each new staff member. And that's really to kind of set the tone, to kind of bring that person up to speed in the Alpenglow way, so to speak. And really the foundation of it is an audio clip. It's a 5-minute clip from Dave Isay's The Act of Listening, which is it's a TED Radio talk. And he talks largely about, listening as an act of love, and how the soul is contained in the human voice. That's the basis of the saying, words have power. But his message really struck me as something that we were already doing at Alpenglow, and that's connecting with humans on a human level. Hearing a story from someone who it might be similar to you, might be comprehensively different from you, and then recognizing a bit of yourself in that person or in their story. It's got a lot of potential power to build bridges of understanding, and I think that's vital in today's world. So I try to impress on the staff, like, the ability to listen can move the needle collectively within our community with that individual at hand. And, if we take the time to listen to people, it can be tremendously powerful.
Wow. That's amazing. Can you just say again the name of the audio clips?
Yeah, Dave Isay, he founded StoryCorps, which is, is a podcast before podcasts existed. And basically, it's an NPR thing. So they would drive this trailer around and park it. And you would go there with your dad or your sibling or your wife and have, a very organic and, sensitive conversation. I'm not talking about just the weather or the snow quality. It's talking about, the human condition and how we all are subject to that. And I think that's a really powerful thing, right? Like, let's connect with people in this day and age, right? It's so polarized and, everyone's on, devices. And, I was just in Ireland and we were in this pub and there were no TVs and it said, no, we do not have wireless. Talk to each other. And that's a little like condescending, but it also holds truth, right? We've lost some connective tissue there in our communicative nature.
Yeah.
But Dave Isay, he's an author. He's fantastic. I find myself reading his work or listening to him and thinking, like, that's how I want my business to run.
In what way? In the sense of being able to make those connections on a deeper level, even with just retail customers.
Yeah, I mean, really at the core of it, we're here to help people. That is our why. And I want a retail experience that, breaks down the traditional PTSD retail, baggage that people come in the doors with. And I want people to be listened to in the shop, so we are big on not asking questions that can be answered with a yes or a no. We challenge the staff to engage with the customer so that there isn't this canned, inauthentic, how can I help you today? Or, what are you looking for today? Because to a lot of people, that means, how can you take my money? Where we want to break down the barriers and connect with them as humans. We want to know, like, where they were running that morning or, what adventures they've been getting into or what their kids are doing. I think that's the lifeblood of a specialty shop. You exist in a small community. You connect with people every day. And if you treat people well, things fall into place, one, but it's also your way of making the world maybe just a little bit better of a place.
You've answered my next question is, what's the role of a specialty outdoor retailer in a world where you can buy anything you want at any time online? And I guess that's the answer.
Yeah, man. And I think the online question is a good one because I'm not elitist enough to say you should always spend your money locally, right? I feel as if you should spend your money locally if that outlet is giving you a valid reason to spend your money locally. Like, if I'm a dick, I don't want people to give me their money, right? Like, that's not equitable. But I do think if you're that foundational or piece in the community, anchor in your community where people are comfortable coming in, getting good advice, but also, breaking down those barriers where people want to share with you. They want to feel comfortable gathering at your shop as a community hub. When I go to another mountain town, like, I'm going to the mountain shop. I want to know where the best coffee is, the best taco is. And I think shops have a responsibility to give people reasons to shop with them. I refuse to say we deserve their money. I think we have to earn their support. And you can do that in a lot of different ways.
Sure. It's almost like that you become the community concierge for your customers.
I mean, it's an old school mentality, but it really, it doesn't change, right? I mean, brick and mortar's been around forever, literally, and that will continue for time immemorial, unless we completely blow it with the planet here. But yeah, it's an age-old, proven model of community support.
Yeah. And I guess it's worth mentioning here that Alpenglow is coming on 50 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of astounding. The shop here in Tahoe City has been around since 79, which is pretty amazing because I'm the second owner. But Alpenglow actually started in 1974 in Truckee. So, it's a little bit of muddy water, but it is very exciting. And, I'm very honored to be a steward of the shop as the second owner.
And for context, you have a relatively small footprint for an outdoor retailer. What's your square footage?
Yeah, we're a 2,700 square foot shop. And I think, because of the events we do, because of, great opportunities like this, or, articles have been written about the shop, I think our reputation is larger than our actual retail power. We're still a pretty small shop, but because of the events and the heritage and how we do things, I think we might punch out of our reputational class a little bit.
For sure. You definitely do. Yeah, that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because the work you've done, the work Jeff, Tracy, your team there, you've put in a lot of work over the years, and it seems there's a strong ripple effect. But there's also a lot of other things that you do with events that we'll get to in a second about that expands the reach of Alpenglow far beyond just outdoor retail. While we're on the topic though of outdoor retail, I'm curious about, because this podcast is mainly targeted for earlier stage brands, smaller brands, independent brands that are just kind of getting their footing in the world. And so we have a choice as those new brands. They can go direct to consumer, or they can have a hybrid model of direct to consumer and wholesale. And what is your advice to those brands as they approach this decision, and what can they do to set themselves up for success?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can only go off of my experience, but I would say, we do struggle currently with the established or big brands and their direct to consumer behavior. We've gone from a time where specialty shops were a legitimate and valued partner from a wholesale channel. And that's still the case. It's just the game's changed a little bit. Brands see I think a shrinking retailer base. I think there's if we're being honest, a lot of average retail out there in the world, regardless of industry. There's too much of it in consumer-driven society. But now, brands have essentially, in many ways, become competitors to shops. And I don't have a problem with that. And the horse is definitely not going back into the stable there. But, I think there's a classy way to do that while respecting, your relationships, shops like Alpenglow that have been around and helping build brands for a lot of years. We kind of scratch our heads a little bit recently and say dude, have they forgotten about us, or do they still care? And in some ways it's become more transactional and taken the fun out of it. But that's why we try to partner with brands that we enjoy working with, and they see the value of the partnership. But I think from a new brand perspective, it really depends on the product. I do think actually for a new brand, a D2C model out of the gate is very smart. You can run, I'm assuming, much less overhead. We all get stalked on Instagram by cool and new brands that we've never heard of. But I do think that allows a brand to build an established reputation or base. And then, there should be a step downstream of a healthy wholesale channel, because without a wholesale channel, a brand can only grow so much. But I look to, something like Raid. Founded this company, I think, last winter with a brand new ski touring pack, which is, I would say, the most innovative pack to hit that category in, 10, 15 years. One trick pony, that's all he made. And he established a base and then branched out with core shops. And I think it's a conversation we always have with reps and companies is, build a base, and then in your wholesale channel, pick the right partners. Don't just pick every partner, because then it's a sea of uniformity. And I think that brand loses a little bit of its credibility and authenticity when it does that. Whereas if you partner with the right brands and, the right shops, and let those shops grow with you, you're not segmenting the pie, but you can still grow it. We use DPS as an example where, we started carrying those skis because we walked by the booth at Outdoor Retailer and saw this like 150 waisted powder ski that looked like a water ski, as it essentially was. And we were like, oh my gosh, what is that? We have to know about that. And they're a cottage brand still. And they really understood the value of driving business to us. So they gave us, exclusive distribution within the area, and we marketed it accordingly. And then, it was a rising tide for everybody. It can be very effective.
Yeah. Partnering with the right retailers in the right locations goes a long way.
I think so, but I'm also biased. So there are realities that reps and brands have that I don't understand. But just looking at it from, now, I think is a 25-year career in the industry and plenty of experience. I think that's a safe assessment. And I think the partnership thing has lost a little shine in our industry because of the growth. Like when things become about money, people get weird, right? You see it within your own friends and family and brands too. When there's private investment or, publicly traded, stuff going on, the rubber meets the road and it becomes about a different inclination, which I think is why the industry has lost a little bit of its soul.
Yeah, it seems we're moved from playing the long game to the quarterly game. There's a lot of thinking about quarterly earnings, and something that Wes Allen brought up in a conversation with him on this podcast is the idea of those in the leadership positions at these brands are essentially moving up a ladder themselves. And so they're making decisions that benefit their next move and the greater position of them. And this isn't true for everybody. I'm painting with a broad brush for sure. But once you get private equity and publicly traded companies involved, you're no longer answering to your customers or to retailers or even to the people who are developing the product in your team. You're answering to the shareholders and the stakeholders in the business.
Yeah, it's very true. And maybe it's a function of, swiftly approaching 50 in my own life. But, I refuse to change my opinion that the industry was built on its people. When I got into the industry in the mid to late 90s, it was these amazing personalities that were building brands, whether it was Skip Yall at JanSport or, someone like a Lynn Hill pushing the envelope of her sport and the brands that gained from that. I don't think we can deny that the magic of our industry is the people, and whether that's a shop or a brand or a rep agency. And really, like, I try to balance all my financial scales with that. What moves the needle? What increases or improves my shop by supporting the people versus the financial realities? Like, what's the better cause and effect there? And I just think sometimes brands they chase the money, which I understand, but, they can't forget about their people. I think REI is struggling with that now, right? Arguably. It's gotten big, really big, and there's a lot of money on the table. And sometimes the people are kind of like the secondary thought.
Sure. And that's why there's so much white space for these smaller niche brands and cottage brands to step in. If ever there was a time, like let's say a hunger in the market for these types of things, that and the technology is there that with a laptop you essentially have a factory, you have a warehouse, you have everything you need, right? Thanks to technology, to be able to do these, to launch and grow these really cool niche brands that can then grow into the DPSs or whatever other very cool in the sense of like moving things and making changes in the industry, brands.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a very refreshing part of the industry right now. And, I find myself as a apparel and a footwear buyer saying, I'm going to make choices to work with authentic, brands with street cred or trail cred, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to actively trim from the brands that don't recognize our partnership or leave a bad taste in my mouth or, for whatever reason. So that is a very exciting part of the industry right now. You're right.
Mm-hmm. I want to turn a little bit back towards the community and the events we've kind of foreshadowed it a little bit. You've definitely built a strong community there locally, but also you've expanded these concentric circles of community out from around you. And you've done that through all sorts of different events that I want to chat with you about. But one of those big events that you're known for is the Winter Speaker Series. And because it's a nonprofit and you donate everything out, it's not necessarily rags to riches. So I don't know what the phrase would be for it, but it humble beginnings to international streaming service. Can you tell me the story of how it started and then where it's grown to?
Yeah, totally. And this is where because I have my own holdups with money. I am a good owner and a bad owner, a bad business person, but I'm okay with that. I can sleep at night. And look, if we got into the outdoor industry for material wealth, we just made a bad decision out of the gate, if we're being completely honest. But rags to rags, I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah, Alpenglow's always been a community-facing business model. Was before I got here. We amplified that because we feel like we have a platform, and that platform has been built by community support. So we feel there's a real responsibility to give back to the people who have supported us for nearly 50 years. And the speaker series is a pretty fun origin story. I mean, Dave Nettle is the co-founder. He had worked at Alpenglow for nearly 20 years before I got on board. And Dave's a under the radar rusher, like the epitome of mountain town athlete.
The dark horse.
Yeah, total dark horse. And he's someone who had been adventuring since his high school years when he did the PCT to, now doing cutting edge alpine ascents and stuff. And he had always given talks literally in people's living rooms, from his giving it to his mom's friends when he was a kid to one where I was lucky enough to sit in on when I was brand new to Tahoe, fresh off the East Coast. And I was just beside myself at how powerful it was. And he's like the COO of what we would call the Church of the 7-Day Recreationalist. And that's kind of where it started. We wanted to formalize that mentality, and we did it for the first year in a local restaurant. It was kind of a dinner and a movie type deal, and there were 20 people who'd show up, and there was always like a nonprofit. We'd give some stuff away and raise a little bit of money, but very quickly we grew out of that space. So now we're in a 750 person venue and a live stream that pulls in thousands of viewers. But the really cool thing, besides like the most dope athletes in the space, climbing and skiing space, who come and share powerful stories, not just of being rad, because everyone in a room watching a show in a mountain town is usually pretty rad to some degree. And it's really their willingness to share about their human condition, their challenges, their struggles, which is very relatable to the viewership. And then a big part of it is really pronounced and large scale kind of corporate style fundraising that we do. So it's win-win, and it's free for everybody. And it's a great kind of labor of love. I'll say that.
Sorry, it's free as in you don't pay to come. You don't pay for a ticket?
Totally free.
I did not know that.
Call me stupid, but I mean, we've thought, gosh, as it grows, right? It's the freemium model is great until a certain scale, and then it becomes somewhat cost prohibitive for the host organization. And we're kind of to that point with, 3,000 to 4,000 in-person attendees and, thousands upon thousands of online viewers. But yeah, we've always felt like this is our offering back to the community. This is our gift to the community for supporting Alpenglow for so many years.
To the degree that you can explain it or divulge, how does it work? Like in the sense of, you mentioned corporate sponsors, and I know that you really team up with, Alpenglow is teaming up with the brands that you work with. But I know that retailers are listening to this, and what are the nuts and bolts behind how does this work?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Like I said, it started in a 50-person venue, so everyone can do that in their shop. Move some racks around, drop a screen and a projector, and have some beers in a cooler, and you're pretty pumped. And so is the community, and they'll show up. But the speaker series is free to attend or watch online, and it's built on sponsor support. That's our own visitor bureau. That's the North Tahoe Community Alliance that is concerned with community vibrancy, or a big sponsor like North Face or Black Diamond actually financially contributing to the event. I always tell fellow shop owners that, there's a certain marketing or capability that your shop has that brands cannot replicate. They can replicate their own authenticity and credibility, but shops who are tied into their communities represent a tremendously powerful conduit for those brands. Sometimes the struggle is getting the brands convinced of that, but shops they're the lifeblood of the industry. I'll never stray from that mantra, but you can do a lot with a little, and your community will love it.
And just for context, how much money has the speaker series raised over the course of its history?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. So this year we should break the $2 million mark over 19 years of doing it. And that number is backloaded, right? 7 years ago, we went and created a anonymous group of about 100 individual families who were community oriented, concerned, and we called it the Donor Party.
Best name ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it had I known it would grow so much, we wouldn't have chosen such a kitschy name. But
come on, I want to join the Donor Party just so I could be a part of the Donor Party.
Basically, these families or individuals make a per season contribution. Last year alone, it was about $350K.
Wow.
This is just me going out to really good customers and asking them if it would add value to them. And invariably, people want to support their own community. Sometimes they just need a way to do it, some help doing it. Usually mountain towns are pretty affluent, and there's that ability to give and the desire to give. But there's always been a giveaway component, right? So, the model's pretty simple. We lean on brands X, Y, and Z that we do good business with and say, hey, we'd love you to be a sponsor and send an athlete. There's ROI for both of us there. And they also send product. So we basically have an in-person giveaway, an online giveaway for the online viewers to make them feel like they're part of the party. And it's shocking how much people will show out and support if you give them an opportunity. And these are all local nonprofits. So, we're trying to explore this opportunity for screening parties, right? Sister viewing parties. And I'm telling retailers just stream the show. All you need is YouTube and a screen and a projector and choose your own nonprofit, have your own raffle and throw some beers in the cooler, get a food truck, choose a local nonprofit, and, people will support it.
No doubt. That's so cool. It's very cool. It's amazing that you have generated that much revenue off of a free event, and you've dispersed almost $2 million right back into the community that supports it, and you support. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's definitely like the highlight for us because there's so much feel good factor. Like we always say, it's designed to inspire and motivate the local community to continue to chase their dreams in the mountains, but also to raise funds and awareness for local nonprofits, making our community a better place. And, yeah, you listen to a show from Cody Townsend or, Hillary Nelson, and the nonprofit raises, anywhere from $70,000 to $90,000 in one show. So it's pretty rad, and yeah, we're excited to see it continue to grow.
Yeah. And so it's 5 nights or something like 5 nights in a row?
It's 5 shows through the winter.
5 shows through the winter. Sorry, that's what it is.
Generally once a month. And now it's become this kind of winter tradition in the community. And, I think the fun part of it is impressing on ourselves to never lose the DNA, right, of the event. Taking the jump to a live stream was a big deal. It was expensive, but COVID forced our hand. But now people are watching from all over the world, and I don't know how they find out about it, but it is one of the good sides of the internet, and it fits into our business model, right? Like, I want people to come in and feel like they're treated fairly and well, and have their own world validated by being listened to. And I want the community to come and listen to these speakers and get psyched and throw a few dollars down to raise, the collective bar in the community.
I know you do other things as well. That's not just this massive winter speaker series. You do other things as well to kind of foster the community and serve the community as a retailer. What are the things you do, or what are the suggestions you have for those other retailers out there that are in their community that may not be as big of a bite off as hosting a speaker series, but something that you get traction with and works with, and you find has a really good return on invested time?
Yeah, no, I think specialty shops, I would argue, have a responsibility to give back, right? And you have a platform that's invariably been supported by your community, and so I always kind of wonder, like, who are these other shops even making it that don't do events? And they don't have to be huge events. You could have fun runs out of the shop where the retailer buys donuts and coffee or beers at happy hour. You can have demo events. You can have any number of things that really just gives people, I always think of, how do we create events that create FOMO for the people watching digitally or from afar? And I think if you're kind of growing out of your core competency, whatever sports you're selling, and giving people the opportunity to do things that we get to enjoy every single day, people will show up and have a good time. And I think the cool thing is you do it first and foremost to give back, or to come from a place of passion about a sport. But you see in something like the Winter Speaker Series, it's a major driver for goodwill, sales. And that's not why we do it, but it's a nice add-on effect.
Sure. I talk about this a lot on this podcast, probably too much. I'm just kind of slightly obsessed with the idea of flywheels, kind of the good to great model, the flywheel effect. And it seems to me that you have built this really successful flywheel for Alpenglow Sports that is centered around events. So each event kind of serves itself, which then serves Alpenglow, which then serves the event, which, on and go, and 20 years later, $2 million are raised. One of the newer events, I guess, to your life, as if you didn't have enough going on, is you're now the one of the partners and race directors of the first or second, one of the largest, this is called top 3 largest trail running events in North America, with the Broken Arrow Sky Race. So what moment of insanity hit you that you said, what, I need to add this to my life?
Yeah, small brain, maybe running at elevation on the Sierra Crest. But yeah, I like to give credit where credit's due. I think the Rut and Pikes Peak are still bigger events than us, and we definitely look up to those folks and respect what they built. But yeah, Broken Arrow in 2015, I was running up on the Palisades, which is kind of like the most extreme ski terrain at Palisades, formerly Squaw Valley. And I came on this old rickety ladder that kind of ascended this rocky ridge and steep cliff band. And I just thought, like, oh, wow, how cool would it be to have a race here? And then, yeah, careful what you wish for, because you do it. And people, they turn out. And now we have kind of a monster on our hands that has become a full-time job. But yeah, I mean, in the age of inclusivity and, the need to do better in that regard, really, you have to do other things outside of the traditional box, I think, that we've done as retailers and brands. But just putting on an event that's free, Broken Arrow is not free, mind you, but something that's bigger series, whatever, that is inclusive because it welcomes people to come and celebrate the shared passion with you. But Broken Arrow is so fun. I love it.
How does that feed into the flywheel? I mean, I'm forcing my metaphor on you here, but
yeah.
How does it work in the sense of the relationship between the trail event? I mean, because it's really not just a race; it is a event now. It's multiple days of multiple different events. You've tacked on this year. You tacked on TrailCon, which is a whole another conference around trail running that you just because you're a glutton for punishment and you love it. And so, how do those things tie together with Alpenglow? I mean, you talked about the goodwill, but are there direct links to revenue drivers from the Broken Arrow to Alpenglow?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, one, I go to contract negotiations with brands as a retailer as my second hat and my race director as my first. But because Alpenglow is the official retail partner of Broken Arrow, it makes the brands play ball on a deeper level, a higher financial level than they would if I was just a race director. So yeah, like you said, we're a 4-day, 9-distance kind of European style festival that's designed to have something for everyone, from a kids race to, a Via Ferrata race with our friends at Alpenglow Expeditions. And we control all the retail sales, at least the majority. If like you're a small brand and you pay your exhibitor fee, I let you control your own destiny there. But Alpenglow will sell the branded merch and the Solomon footwear that you might buy at Broken Arrow or throughout the rest of the year is Alpenglow owned inventory that's been brokered with Solomon, so we get a break, which we extend to the customer, which then drives sales back full circle to us. And I don't like the discount game, but when you have a captive audience that is very hungry for, gear, running shoes and hydration vests and poles and stuff, it makes that medicine easier to swallow. And we've also grown it into a 12-month-a-year effort. So we have a race-ready set of items that we identify with each sponsor in our race operations team. And then, we push that out on social and email communications. But the sales always come back to Alpenglow. They're made at our website and whatnot. So we're accessing a big run channel through Broken Arrow for Alpenglow's benefit.
And have you seen a significant growth in your run business through the race?
Huge. And year round, we're at 6,300 feet here in Tahoe City. And, traditionally that's a 5-month-a-year run shop, 6 months, 7 months if you're lucky. And so now with the advent of Broken Arrow and some other relationships we have, we can offer a value add for races because they can offer a value add to their runners. And so at the end of the day, like, the shop benefits from the hard work at the race and vice versa.
Yeah. I don't know. The universe seems to be conspiring around me because in the last 2 weeks, I'm having this conversation with you now. I had a text conversation with a good friend who just ran a 100-mile race over the weekend, and a conversation with a friend before that who ran 50 kilometers, his first 50K. Both of them talked about use the phrase psychedelic experience, so I was intrigued. What is it? What's going on with trail running?
Trail running is amazing right now, and the people involved, I think, are the major drivers. It's a shared passion and a unique sport where you can line up on a start line next to your idols, and you can't do that in any other context. It's just it's a very rootsy sport that, of course, is growing. And a lot of money is coming into it, and it's changing. But the reality, I think, is people have always looked for difficult things to do and difficult ways to challenge themselves, particularly aerobically inclined people. And I think another really big driver in the trail run space is the community vibe, the feel of it. you see these, whether they're urban road running clubs or mountain running clubs, like it's where people gather. It's their version of church, and they connect with people. They make their buying decisions there. They might meet their spouse there. They make friends there, all under the umbrella of, a sport.
Yeah. That only requires a pair of shoes, theoretically.
Pretty simple. Yeah.
Right? That's what I love about it. I'll be honest, I was looking at the Broken Arrow website the other day, and you make it really, you trail runners are really trying to lure us in. It's like the first taste is free type of thing going on with you guys. You're really trying to lure it in, and it's effective. It's working.
Yeah, I think, I look at the trail running community now the way the rock climbing community was kind of in those golden era days of Yosemite and whatnot, where everyone was welcome. It didn't matter if you were a stud or, a back of the packer. You're equally accepted and respected. There's work to do, of course, as there always is. But I think at a foundational level, like, people are welcoming, and that's how we try to be at Alpenglow, because it's just the right thing to do, the right way to treat people.
Yeah, 100% agree. Is there a reason, for the rock climbing analogy, it's changed a bit from what it used to be, I guess, in some ways? I still think there's a really good dirtbag core of rock climbing. There always will be. God bless them. And what's the rationale behind TrailCon? Is this another way to be able to infuse what you hope the direction for the sport to go? And what is your long-term plan for TrailCon?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, TrailCon, I have two other partners in it. Dylan Bowman of Free Trail, who's I would say a media celebrity and a professional athlete in his own right. And then this amazing Scotsman named Doug Emsley. And we were kind of on these parallel evolutions of, if we're honest, kind of the mess the outdoor industry is in right now with trade show drama and, all the things that we talk about all the time. We all felt that run is headed in that direction. Astronomical growth, lots of brands, lots of interests. And we felt like there was an opportunity to come together and talk about all these things. And if we could do that together, even if it was difficult, then maybe we could influence how the sport evolves a little bit, both in a brand standpoint, a retail standpoint, media, pro athlete standpoint. So it's exciting. And really it was made to bridge the gap between our weekend at Broken Arrow, which is the weekend before the biggest ultra in the world, reputationally, not volume, which is Western States. And so we dropped TrailCon right in the middle in the hopes that there would be no excuses for anyone to not be here in the run space.
Smart. It's a very cool idea. Good for you for getting in front of the problem and coming up with some solutions before the problem is too big. So good for you for that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. And it was great to see the interest in year one, and we're, next year it'll be a multi-day event. Hopefully it'll be a multi-year event too. And it's exciting. I think when you see a lot of feedback, it means people are hungry and interested in it.
Cool. It begs the question. I know you spend a lot of time at the shop. I know you spend a lot of time having conversations with people, and you have multiple events. How do you find the time to be able to do all these things that you're so passionate about, serve your community, and still pursue the hobbies that I know kind of put the fuel in the tank for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's hard. I would say it's a combination of being extremely disciplined with my time and being willing to get up and do the most enjoyable work, which is, ski touring or running or riding in the morning early before work. But also part of that is having a great team here at the shop that helps me with events and, does a lot of the lift. So speaker series, I'm involved in terms of sponsorships and athlete procurement, and I MC the shows, but my team does all the heavy lifting. I also don't have kids, which really helps, I think, from a time perspective. It would be much different if I did. But yeah, I think you gotta you got one life, right? I feel like you got to cram it in.
You're doing it, man. It seems like it.
No,
Based on
thanks.
this conversation, based on this conversation and what I know of you from working with you over the years, you're definitely a values-based entrepreneur. Like you mentioned it already. You're not into this to build wealth for yourself. You're doing it because you have strong values. And I know you're a fan of Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and I'm curious, you've alluded to it earlier, but I'm curious to hear you kind of expand on what is your why that keeps you doing all these things that you're doing.
Yeah. I think the why has developed over time. When I moved to Tahoe, I remember walking by Alpenglow when we would head to the pub as much younger, 20-something-year-old guys. And I was working at a shop at the time on the East Coast, and I thought, like, that's the spot. You know, I'd been in there and the vibe was right, and it just seemed to hit. And so when I started working at the shop, I was exposed to these amazing people, and they really taught me the value of, you know, getting up and being, you know, the first one in the trailhead, put the skin track in. And so when someone comes to work into the shop on a POW day and says, like, "Oh, bummer, you got to work," and it's like, "No, man, we already skied $5,000 before work. What are you doing in here? It's 11 o'clock. Why aren't you skiing?" You know? But I got kind of infused with that religion from those people, which I'm really grateful for and always will be. But the why hasn't, it's evolved, but it hasn't strayed from really the willingness and the desire to help people. You know, I think that's the core competency of a specialty shop, you know, is we want people to come in and we want the opportunity to help them, because yeah, you might be buying ski boots or run shoes or whatever, but that's just a metaphor for like actually helping people. You know, we do the same thing through the speaker series and the community book initiative and all the other events that have a big give back component, a values-based component that keeps us mission driven. But yeah, that book is so good. I love it.
What are the areas that you're working on as a business owner that you want to improve on in the next 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I'm a, for better or worse, like a dogmatic perfectionist and my own worst critic. But I think for me, you know, going into my 12th year of ownership, you know, we're trying to be a better business, again, without losing our DNA, because that's what makes us who we are. I'm trying to be better with financial analytics, to be honest. It's not what I enjoy, but it's what's mandatory. I'd much rather be selling skis and putting on events, but that's where the rubber meets the road. And as I start to, you know, adult in my 40s, and I didn't adult for a lot of my 20s and early 30s, I was just kind of a ski bum, but that's proven to be, you know, a great challenge and a great learning opportunity that has improved the business. And, you know, I think that's vital as a small business person for ultimate success. But I think that's probably the biggest challenge. It will always probably be the biggest challenge. And then really, I think what we're trying to do is monetize the events so that overall those little mini P&Ls are healthier than they have been. You know, working with partners on a deeper level for more financial support, getting more of those partners so that, you know, we're running a better event that's not losing what it is, but on the back end, it's becoming healthier.
The question I end every podcast with is, how do you define success for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, man, to be honest, but I was in Ireland for a few weeks this fall, and, you know, visiting super old ruins and castles and cemeteries, and they have those rad, you know, Celtic crosses there, and it kind of triggered a certain kind of recognition of mortality, right? And I think at Alpenglow we try to impress on everyone that whether you're here for 6 months or 6 years, we want you to look back on that time favorably, that you worked with good people in a good place that treated you fairly and challenged you and you grew from. But I don't want a cool Celtic cross or a bench or anything like a library, anything like that. I think really it's kind of the beauty of life, right? Like you make a difference with the people in your circles. They then, like you said, hopefully create a ripple effect and do the same to theirs. Because in 100 years, like no one gives a shit who you were or what you did, unless you were ultra famous. So I think it's a matter of making the difference in the people in your life, and hopefully that pays it forward.
Have you heard the phrase, write your stories on hearts and not on tombstones?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's kind of a similar vibe to what you're giving.
It's all ephemeral, right?
Totally. Yeah. As Jim Morrison said, none of us get out of here alive. Brendan, I really appreciate your time and honestly the work that you're doing and just the skin track that you're putting in for everybody behind you. Like you're doing it.
Thanks,
and people are looking to you, and it's been an honor to be able to work with you over the years and see Alpenglow and work with your staff and also just you as an entrepreneur. It's inspiring. Like honestly, I look at all the stuff you do and sometimes I'm just like, man, I want to take a nap. What does he must feel like? But it's cool and it's inspiring and it's pushing us. And I know that there's retailers out there who are watching what you're doing, and I hope that they're going to take a piece of it and at least apply it to their own part of the world.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. And one, I think, those retailers are always welcome to reach out to me. I'm an open book, and there's no like IP, and I'll share the playbook for sure. But then I would say like someone needs to flip these roles, right? So put you in the opposite seat and put your story down, because it's also very inspiring and awesome. So kudos to you too.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end of this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend you think may enjoy it too. Sharing goes a long way. You could also take a few seconds to subscribe to the podcast. Anything you do to help share the love here, we'd appreciate it. Thanks so much for following along, and we'll see you next time.